They say you can't take your money with you, but you can certainly make sure someone else doesn't get it either. A will is the ultimate middle finger from beyond the grave, a final chance to settle scores when the masks of family loyalty finally slip. Today, we're looking at 101 people who thought they were entitled to a fortune, only to realize their legacy was nothing but a cold, hard lesson in karma. 1. Kevin treated his grandma's beach house like his personal future ATM. When she asked for help painting the porch, he laughed and said he wasn't working on a shack, he'd just bulldoze anyway. Bad move. Grandma's will left the mansion to a cat sanctuary, while Kevin got a single rusted paint scraper and a bill for the shack's property taxes. 2. Most people wait for the funeral to act like vultures. But Brenda started listing her dad's furniture on Facebook Marketplace while he was literally on a ventilator. She didn't know the old man could hear every word. He recovered just long enough to sign a new will, leaving Brenda a sold sticker and giving $5 million to his nurse. 3. Imagine skipping your uncle's final days for a Raiders game and then texting him, "Win big for me, Unc." Well, his uncle, a lifelong Chiefs fan, decided that was the ultimate betrayal. He didn't just cut Mark out. He left him a framed photo of the Raiders losing 48-0 and a voucher for a stadium hot dog. 4. Tiffany called her grandpa's vintage stamp collection dusty trash for losers and begged him to sell it for her Tesla down payment. Grandpa took her advice, but with a twist. He sold the collection for $600,000 and donated every cent to a Losers Anonymous charity, leaving Tiffany nothing but a single used 1-cent stamp. 5. While his father was on a bucket list cruise, Jason threw a keg stand party in the family library, shattering a Ming vase. He recorded a TikTok bragging that the inheritance will cover it. Dad saw the video in the ship's Wi-Fi lounge. Jason's inheritance? A digital copy of that TikTok and a legal eviction notice from the library. 6. Sarah skipped her mom's 90th birthday for a spiritual yoga retreat, claiming she needed to find her inner peace. Her mother found peace too, by giving the entire $3 million estate to the local pizza delivery guy who actually remembered her name. Sarah's spiritual gift was a yoga mat and a pamphlet on how to apply for food stamps. 7. Gary thought he was being efficient when he started putting for sale tags on his grandpa's oxygen tank while the man was still using it. He even tried to rehome the man's dog to save on future cleaning fees. Grandpa didn't die that night. He just woke up, called his lawyer, and left $2 million to the dog's new chef. 8. Derek made a viral video mocking his grandma's peasant cooking, calling her meatloaf a biohazard. He forgot his grandma was his biggest subscriber. In her final document, she left Derek her secret recipe book, but every single page was blank except for the last one, which simply read, "Starve." The rest of her millions went to Gordon Ramsay's favorite charity. 9. Chloe spent years calling her father's new wife a gold-digging parasite to her face. To prove a point, her father left his entire tech fortune to the wife, stating in the will that since Chloe was so worried about parasites, he'd remove the blood for her to suck on. Chloe's bank account stayed at 0, while the parasite stayed in the penthouse. 10. Justin told his uncle he couldn't attend his boring funeral because it conflicted with leg day at the gym. The uncle, who was faking a health scare to test the family, lived another 5 years just to make sure Justin got nothing. Justin's final payout? A 5-pound dumbbell and a note. Keep grinding, because you're officially broke. 11. After his dad suffered a stroke, Brad immediately started browsing luxury yachts, assuming the inheritance was a done deal. He even had the nerve to ask the doctor how much time was left while holding a yacht brochure. Dad recovered just enough to sign one last paper, leaving Brad a toy boat and donating the entire $8 million estate to the Coast Guard. 12. Samantha refused to visit her grandmother unless the old lady paid for her travel expenses, which usually included a first-class ticket and a Dior bag. Grandma finally got tired of being a human ATM. Her will stated that since Samantha loved luxury travel so much, she'd be gifted a one-way bus ticket to the middle of nowhere. The millions? All went to a local bus driver's retirement fund. 13. When Uncle Morty asked his nephew to help him move some heavy boxes, the kid sent a quote from a moving company and told his uncle to check his privilege. Morty didn't argue. He hired the movers, and in his will, he left the nephew the bill for their services. The actual treasure inside those boxes, a collection of rare gold coins, was gifted to the moving crew. 14. Megan spent her father's funeral live streaming on Instagram, complaining about how the vibes were off and the casket looked cheap. She even did a fit check next to the grave. Little did she know, her father's lawyer was watching. A week later, Megan learned her inheritance was deleted, just like her stories, with the cash going to a foundation for grieving families. 15. Chad thought he was being alpha by telling his dying father that the family farm was deadweight and he'd sell it to developers for a mall. The father, who spent 50 years tilling that soil, had a different plan. He put the land into a permanent nature trust. Chad's share? A single jar of dirt and a shovel so he could finally learn what real work feels like. 16. Every Christmas, Rebecca sent her aunt a wish list of designer shoes, never once asking how the woman's cancer treatment was going. When the aunt passed, Rebecca expected a closet full of Prada. Instead, she received a pair of worn-out gardening clogs and a note. These are for walking to the unemployment office. The aunt's estate went to the nurses who actually cared. 17. Stephen was caught on a hidden nanny cam trying to swap his mother's expensive diamond ring with a cubic zirconia replacement while she slept. He figured she was too senile to notice. She wasn't. She sold the real diamond, went on a world tour, and left Stephen the fake ring with a note. Since you love fake so much, here's a fake inheritance. 18. When an eccentric billionaire asked his niece to name her favorite thing about him, she whispered, "Your bank account," thinking he couldn't hear. He laughed, but his lawyer didn't. The will later revealed that her favorite thing was donated entirely to a university for the study of human greed. The niece received a book on basic ethics and a firm handshake from the executor. 19. Ashley refused to host Thanksgiving dinner for her elderly parents because she didn't want them messing up her new white carpets. She told them to go to a diner instead. Her parents took the hint. They spent the next 3 years spending Ashley's inheritance on 5-star cruises. When they passed, the only thing left for Ashley was a bill for the cleaning of their cruise ship cabin. 20. After his brother died, Derek showed up at the house before the body was even cold, demanding the keys to the classic 1969 Mustang in the garage. He even brought a tow truck. The brothers' will, however, had a specific clause. The Mustang goes to the first person who asks about my well-being, not my car. The car went to a neighbor, and Derek got the bill for the tow. 21. Kimberly told her mother-in-law that her homemade quilts were tacky rags and hid them in the attic whenever guests came over. The mother-in-law quietly documented the disrespect. In her will, she revealed that those rags had over $50,000 in cash sewn into the linings. Kimberly got the quilts, but only after her mother-in-law donated them to a homeless shelter. 22. A guy named Ryan spent his life making fun of his father's boring job as a librarian, calling him a glorified bookstacker. When the father passed, Ryan expected a massive life insurance payout. Instead, the will required Ryan to read every single book in the library's philosophy section before receiving a cent. Ryan quit after 3 pages, forfeiting his millions to the local literacy program. 23. Jessica was so obsessed with her image that she asked her sick mother not to attend her wedding because the oxygen tank didn't fit the aesthetic. The mother agreed and spent the wedding day at her lawyer's office. When she passed, Jessica's aesthetic took a hit. Her inheritance was a single photo of the oxygen tank and a message. Now your life is perfectly balanced, empty and quiet. 24. Bill thought he was clever by borrowing his father's credit card for emergencies, which apparently included a trip to Las Vegas and a Rolex. He promised to pay it back when he inherited the estate. The father saw the statements and made a final adjustment. Bill's inheritance was exactly the amount of his credit card debt, which the estate paid off, leaving him with a balance of 0. 25. A niece named Lauren refused to take her uncle to his dialysis appointments because she had a hair appointment she couldn't move. The uncle took an Uber and changed his will during the ride. Lauren's inheritance? A pack of hair ties and a framed copy of the Uber receipt. The rest of the fortune went to the Uber driver, who had actually listened to the uncle's stories. 26. Tyler spent years bragging about how he'd modernize his grandfather's vintage watch shop by turning it into a crypto mining hub. The grandfather, a master horologist, didn't appreciate the vision. He left the shop to his youngest apprentice. Tyler was left with a single broken digital watch from the 80s and a note, "Looks like your time just ran out, kid." 27. Vanessa told her dad that his obsession with the local church was a waste of potential inheritance money. She even tried to have him declared mentally incompetent to take control of his accounts. The judge disagreed, and so did her dad. He left every penny to the church's new wing named the Vanessa's Greed Memorial Hall. Vanessa received a single Bible with the greed verses highlighted. 28. When his aunt asked for help fixing a leak in her roof, Mark told her to call a pro because he didn't want to ruin his manicure. The pro ended up being a friendly local handyman who did the job for free. The aunt was so touched, she left her entire estate to the handyman. Mark's pro advice cost him a 3-bedroom house and a $2 million investment portfolio. 29. A grandson named Kyle refused to bring his grandfather a glass of water, telling him to get up and get it yourself, old man. The grandfather did get up, to call his attorney. Kyle's inheritance was a single empty glass with a note. "Since you're so worried about people doing things for themselves, you can earn your own damn money." The millions went to a clean water charity. 30. Olivia constantly complained that her father's funeral would be too expensive and suggested he just donate his body to science to save her the cash. The father took her advice literally. He left his body to a university and his entire fortune to their medical research department. Olivia received a letter of thanks from the university and exactly $0 for her budgeting efforts. 31. Greg refused to drive his dad to the doctor because he didn't want old people smell in his new Porsche. He told his father to call an ambulance instead. Dad did better. He called a limousine service. He spent the next year traveling in style on Greg's inheritance. When he died, Greg's payout was a single air freshener and a bill for the limo's champagne bar. 32. Amanda spent her mother's final Thanksgiving complaining that the turkey was too dry and the house was depressing. She even took a selfie pouting with the caption, "Enduring this for the bag." Mom saw the post. Her will was short. "Since my house was so depressing, you are officially banned from entering it ever again." The bag went to the local food bank. 33. A nephew named Scott was caught trying to price tag his uncle's antique collection while the man was in the next room taking a nap. He even had a buyer lined up for the grandfather clock. The uncle woke up, saw the tags, and sold everything himself the next day. He spent the cash on a world tour and left Scott a plastic digital watch. 34. Courtney told her grandmother that her hand-knit sweaters were hideous and only good for cleaning rags. She didn't know Grandma tucked a $1,000 bill into the sleeve of every sweater she made. After the funeral, the will gave the ugly sweaters to a charity shop and gave Courtney nothing. She watched on the news as a homeless man found a small fortune in his new cardigan. 35. When his father asked for help moving a heavy sofa, Eric sent him a link to a Rent-A-Hustler app and said, "Time is money, Pops." The father agreed. He changed his will to state that Eric's time was clearly too valuable for an inheritance. He left his multi-million-dollar business to the hustler who actually showed up and helped him move that day. 36. Brittany refused to visit her dying aunt because the hospital lighting was bad for her skin, and she had a Coachella trip planned. She texted, "Sending vibes, see you at the after party." The aunt's lawyer sent vibes back, in the form of a legal document removing Brittany from the will. Her inheritance was a Coachella wristband from 3 years ago. 37. A guy named Todd convinced his senile father to sign over the deed to the family cabin, then immediately put the old man in the cheapest nursing home he could find. Luckily, a judge found out about the gift and voided it. The father regained his senses and left the cabin to the nursing home staff. Todd got a bill for the legal fees and a "no trespassing" sign. 38. Jenna complained that her father's cancer treatments were eating into her future inheritance and suggested he stop fighting and let go. Her father decided to fight even harder. He spent his remaining 2 years donating every single cent to cancer research. Jenna's inheritance? A thank you card from the hospital and a lifetime of being the family pariah. 39. After his brother's death, Paul tried to charge the estate consulting fees for choosing the casket and organizing the flowers. He even billed for his own gas money to the funeral. The executor, disgusted by the greed, used a bad faith clause to void Paul's share. Instead of a 6-figure payout, Paul received a reimbursement check for exactly $42 for gas. 40. Megan told her mother-in-law that her jewelry was outdated junk, and she'd probably just melt it down once it was hers. The mother-in-law took the hint and had all her diamonds replaced with high-quality glass. She sold the real stones and gave the money to an orphanage. Megan inherited a box of outdated junk that was literally worth $10. 41. Lucas was so sure he was getting his father's classic car collection that he started taking deposits from buyers before the funeral. When the will was read, it turns out Dad had donated the entire fleet to a trade school. Lucas had to pay back all the deposits out of his own pocket, plus interest. He's now driving a 1998 Honda Civic. 42. A granddaughter named Haley refused to bring her sick grandpa a glass of water because she was in the middle of a ranked match on her PC. The grandpa didn't say a word. He just waited until she went to sleep, called his lawyer, and left his $5 million estate to a charity that builds wells in Africa. Haley got a game over screen. 43. Nick told his elderly aunt that her house was a hoarder's nightmare, and he couldn't wait to gut the place and flip it for a profit. The aunt spent her final months hiring a professional gutting crew to strip the house to the studs. She sold the materials and gave the money to a local park. Nick inherited a literal empty shell of a house. 44. Piper refused to host her father for Christmas because his old man breath and boring stories would ruin her party's aesthetic. She told him to stay at a motel. He did, and spent the night rewriting his will with the motel's night manager. Piper's inheritance? A travel-sized bottle of mouthwash and a framed photo of her dad and his new best friend, the manager, who inherited the estate. 45. An entitled son named Brandon tried to sue his own mother for his rightful inheritance, while she was still very much alive and healthy. He claimed she was mismanaging his future money by traveling. The judge laughed him out of court. His mother then spent the rest of her life making sure there was exactly $0 left. Brandon's inheritance? A copy of the court's dismissal. 46. Tyler refused to drive his uncle to the grocery store, telling him his time was worth $200 an hour. The uncle decided to pay that rate. He sent Tyler a check for $200 and removed him from the will. The remaining $3 million went to the local Meals on Wheels service that actually delivered the uncle's groceries. 47. Sarah complained that her grandfather's funeral was inconveniently scheduled during her salon appointment. She asked if they could move it to Monday. The family didn't move the funeral, but they did move Sarah out of the will. She received a gift certificate for a haircut and a note. Since your hair is more important than family, hope it looks great at the reading. 48. A nephew named Kyle tried to sell his uncle's dog on an app because he didn't want a shedding animal in his future penthouse. The uncle found out, hid the dog with a friend, and changed his will. The dog inherited a trust fund for a literal mansion and a full-time caretaker. Kyle got a bag of dog poop and a bill for the missed sale. 49. Daisy told her dad that his obsession with the local library was creepy, and he should spend his money on her influencer career instead. Dad took the library part to heart. He funded a new wing in his name and left Daisy a library card with a how-to book on getting a real job. Her influencer career is currently at 0 followers, but she can now borrow books for free. 50. After her dad had a heart attack, Monica's first question to the nurse wasn't, "Will he live?" but, "Is the safe deposit box key in his pocket?" The nurse told the dad. He lived long enough to empty the box and give the contents to the nurse. Monica's inheritance? The empty box and a note. "The key was in my pocket, but the money is gone." 51. Ryan constantly joked that his dad's vintage guitar collection would look better as cash in his crypto wallet. He even brought an appraiser to the house during his dad's birthday party. The father, a retired rock star, didn't find it funny. He donated the entire collection to a school for underprivileged kids. Ryan's inheritance? A single guitar pick and a how to play book. 52. Melissa refused to help her mother move into assisted living because she had VIP tickets to a brunch event she couldn't miss. She told her mom to hire the help and stop being a burden. The burden decided to take her $2 million portfolio and gift it to the nursing home's activity fund. Melissa's inheritance? A VIP pass to the reading of a will where she got nothing. 53. A nephew named Shane tried to audit his aunt's spending because she was wasting his inheritance on expensive tea and biscuits. He even threatened to sue for power of attorney. The aunt, sharp as a tack, spent her final year buying the world's rarest teas. Shane's inheritance was a box of used tea bags and a letter. Since you love audits, here's a bill for the tea you drank. 54. When her dad asked for a ride to church, Ashley told him religion is for losers, and he should just watch it on TV so she didn't have to miss her spin class. Her dad took it well. He left his entire estate to the church to build a new gym for winners. Ashley received a single gym towel with the church's logo and a God bless card. 55. Justin was so sure he'd inherit his uncle's construction company that he started firing loyal employees before the old man even passed. He wanted to trim the fat. The uncle found out, rehired everyone, and made the most senior foreman the new owner. Justin's inheritance? A help wanted sign and a pink slip from the company he thought he'd own. 56. Chloe told her grandfather that his war medals were creepy old metal, and he should melt them down for scrap. She didn't realize those medals represented a lifetime of sacrifice. The grandfather left the medals and his $4 million estate to a veterans hospital. Chloe's inheritance? A history textbook with the chapter on respect bookmarked and a bill for the book's shipping. 57. After her mother fell, Natalie didn't call an ambulance because she didn't want the sirens to wake the neighbors and ruin her dinner party. She waited 3 hours. The mother survived, changed her will, and left Natalie exactly $1 for ambulance fare. The rest of her millions went to the paramedics who actually saved her life. 58. A guy named Blake tried to convince his dad to sell his useless farmland to a toxic waste disposal company for a quick payout. He even forged a signature on a preliminary contract. The dad found out, sued his own son, and left the land to a local organic honeybee sanctuary. Blake's inheritance? A single jar of honey and a lifelong ban from the property. 59. Amber refused to let her smelly grandmother stay in her guest room for a week while her heater was broken, telling her to find a Motel 6. The grandmother stayed at the Ritz-Carlton instead, and stayed there for the rest of her life using Amber's inheritance. When she died, Amber got a postcard from the hotel and a bill for the mist room service. 60. When his uncle asked for help cleaning out his dusty basement, Mark sent a junk removal crew and billed the estate. He claimed his hands were too clean for manual labor. Hidden in that basement was a collection of mint-condition vintage toys worth a fortune. The uncle gave the collection to the neighbor's kid, who actually helped him carry the boxes. 61. Tiffany told her mother that her antique jewelry was tacky costume junk, and she'd probably just give it to a thrift store. The mother took the jewelry to a jeweler, sold it for $300,000, and went on a world cruise. Tiffany's inheritance was the original empty jewelry box and a note. Since it was just junk, you won't miss what was inside. Ian, 62. After his brother died, Dave tried to sell the man's nerdy comic book collection for $10 at a garage sale. He didn't know it contained a first edition Superman worth 6 figures. The executor caught him and stopped the sale. The collection went to a museum, and Dave was removed from the will for attempted theft of estate assets. He walked away with $0. 63. Maya complained that her father's dialysis appointments were ruining her weekend vibes, and asked him to schedule them on weekdays so she could go to the lake. The father apologized and hired a full-time driver. In his will, he left the driver his lake house and a massive cash bonus. Maya's inheritance? A vibe check in the form of a $0 bank balance. 64. An entitled son named Derek told his dying father that he'd finally paint the house a normal color once the old man was gone. He hated his father's bright yellow, happy house. The father left the house to a local art collective on the condition it stays yellow forever. Derek's inheritance? A single yellow paint chip and a good luck note. 65. Sarah mocked her aunt's stupid hobby of collecting rare coins, calling it a waste of time and money. She even accidentally dropped a jar of them down a storm drain. The aunt didn't get mad, she just got even. She left Sarah her favorite jar, which was filled with worthless chocolate coins. The real gold went to a numismatic society. Sweet but expensive. 66. When his mother asked for help setting up her new computer, Kyle told her she was too old for tech and to stick to her knitting. The mother learned tech anyway, specifically how to use an online banking app to transfer her entire savings to a charity for tech-savvy seniors. Kyle's inheritance? A pair of knitting needles and a ball of yarn. 67. Courtney refused to attend her father's boring retirement party, calling him a corporate drone. She said she only cared about when he'd finally stop hoarding his wealth. The father stopped hoarding it that night by setting up a scholarship fund for ambitious students. Courtney's inheritance: a how to write a resume guide and a drones are hiring flyer. 68. A grandson named Tyler tried to rehome his grandpa's cat because the fur ruined his designer suits. He dropped the pet at a shelter without telling anyone. The grandpa found the cat, brought it home, and changed his will. The cat now lives in the mansion with a private caretaker, while Tyler received a lint roller and a lifetime ban from the property. 69. Megan told her mother-in-law that her shabby cottage was a teardown, and she couldn't wait to build a real house there. The mother-in-law had the cottage declared a protected historical landmark. It can never be torn down or renovated. Megan got the cottage, but she can't touch a single brick. She's now stuck paying taxes on a shack she hates. 70. After his father's heart attack, Brandon's only concern was whether the will was in the safe or the lawyer's office. He even tried to guess the safe's combination while his dad was in surgery. The dad survived, saw the security footage of Brandon guessing, and emptied the safe the next day. Brandon's inheritance? A sticky note inside the safe that said, "Wrong code, loser." 71. Hunter told his dad that his obsession with the family orchard was a waste of prime real estate, and he'd pave it over for a car wash the moment he inherited it. Dad, who spent 40 years grafting those trees, decided to graft Hunter out of the will. The orchard went to a local university for research, and Hunter got a single bag of rotten apples. 72. When her aunt asked for a hand with some gardening, Olivia told her to hire a peasant because she didn't want to break a nail. The aunt took her advice. She hired a local student and was so impressed by his manners that she left him her entire Victorian estate. Olivia's inheritance? A plastic press-on nail kit and a map to the nearest unemployment office. 73. A nephew named Seth tried to borrow his uncle's rare whiskey collection for a frat party, claiming, "The old man won't taste the difference anyway." The uncle caught him swapping the good stuff with cheap rail vodka. He changed his will to ensure Seth only received the empty vodka bottles. The actual whiskey, worth $60,000, went to a veterans club. 74. After her mother was diagnosed with dementia, Rachel tried to make her sign a document giving Rachel full control over the family trust. Luckily, the mother's lawyer was in the room. He informed the mother, who had a lucid moment, and promptly replaced Rachel's name with local animal shelter. Rachel's payout: a thank you card from a group of rescue pugs. 75. Jordan bragged on a podcast that he was basically a millionaire because his ancient grandfather was finally on his way out. He even discussed how he'd spend the boomer money on crypto and lifestyle. The grandfather's nurse played him the episode. The ancient man lived another 3 years, long enough to spend every dime on luxury travel. Jordan got nothing. 76. When his mother asked for help moving a heavy trunk, Leo told her to stop being a hoarder and throw it all away. He didn't know the trunk was filled with gold bullion from the 1920s. The mother sold the gold, bought a penthouse in Vegas, and left Leo a note. "I took your advice and threw it all away. On myself. Enjoy the hoarding." 77. Vanessa refused to bring her embarrassing father to her corporate gala because he dressed like a janitor. The janitor happened to be the silent majority shareholder of her company. He didn't just cut her out of the will, he had her fired the next morning. Vanessa's inheritance, a How to Dress for Success book, and a permanent ban from the office. 78. A grandson named Caleb tried to sell his grandpa's vintage record collection to a hipster shop before the man even passed. He told the shop owner his grandpa didn't even know what year it was. Grandpa knew exactly what was happening. He left the records to a local museum and left Caleb a single fidget spinner from 2017. Talk about a bad remix. 79. After his father's stroke, Sean spent the hospital visit arguing with the nurse about whether the family silver was taxable. The father, unable to speak, wrote "Give it to the nurse" on a napkin. The lawyer made it legal. Sean's inheritance? A single plastic spork from the hospital cafeteria and a World's Best Son trophy he bought for himself in 3rd grade. 80. Megan told her mother-in-law that her shabby lake house was a death trap and she'd never let her kids visit that dump. The mother-in-law spent $300,000 renovating it into a 5-star vacation rental. She left the property to a total stranger she met on a plane. Megan's inheritance? A no trespassing sign and a photo of the new renovation. 81. When his uncle asked for help setting up a GoFundMe for surgery, Derek told him to get a job and stop begging for handouts. The uncle's surgery was successful, and he later won a massive class action lawsuit. He left the millions to a charity for people with real heart. Derek's inheritance? A single penny and a help-wanted flyer from a fast food joint. 82. Chloe complained that her grandmother's old lady perfume gave her a headache and told her to stay in the back of the house during her graduation party. Grandma stayed in the back, writing a new will. She left her massive jewelry collection to the sweet-smelling local florist. Chloe's inheritance? A travel-sized bottle of unscented hand sanitizer and a best-of-luck note. 83. An entitled son named Arthur tried to sue his father for emotional distress because the old man bought a new Corvette instead of giving Arthur the cash for a startup. The father won the case, then left the Corvette to the lawyer who defended him. Arthur's inheritance? The bill for his father's legal fees? That's a startup cost he didn't see coming. 84. After her sister died, Pam showed up at the house to claim the designer handbag collection, even though she hadn't spoken to her sister in a decade. The sister's will, however, required Pam to correctly name all 5 of her sister's cats to get the bags. Pam didn't even know she had cats. The bags were auctioned off for charity. Pam got a lint roller. 85. Tyler told his father that his antique clock shop was a dinosaur business, and he'd liquidate the junk for a quick buck. The father, a master watchmaker, left the shop and all his tools to a local apprentice who actually appreciated the craft. Tyler's inheritance? A single digital alarm clock that only shows 12:00 and a note, "Looks like your time is up." 86. When her grandfather asked for a ride to the veterans meeting, Sky told him to call a shuttle because she didn't want war talk ruining her positive energy. The grandfather took the shuttle and met a fellow veteran who needed a place to stay. He left the veteran his house and gave Sky a participation trophy for being a granddaughter for exactly 5 minutes. 87. A guy named Ryan tried to gift his father's classic car to a friend to avoid estate taxes, assuming it would be his anyway. The father found out and reported the car as stolen. Ryan was arrested, and the father changed the will to leave the car to the police department's youth outreach program. Ryan's inheritance? A single Hot Wheels version of the car. 88. Courtney told her aunt that her ugly hand-painted ceramics were only fit for a garage sale. She didn't know the aunt was a world-renowned artist whose work sold for thousands. After the funeral, the aunt left all her art to a national gallery. Courtney's inheritance? A single C- pottery project she made in middle school and a note, Now they match your taste. 89. After his brother's funeral, Greg asked the widow if he could take the 80-inch TV since the brother wasn't using it anymore. The widow, disgusted, called the lawyer. The lawyer informed Greg that the TV was part of a bad person clause in the will. Greg's inheritance? A 5-inch portable black and white television from 1970 and a bill for the funeral flowers. 90. Sarah refused to visit her boring grandmother unless there was a guaranteed inheritance talk during dinner. Grandma got tired of the business meetings. She left Sarah her favorite item, a dusty, locked safe. When Sarah finally cracked it open after the funeral, it was filled with nothing but business cards for ethics consultants. The millions all went to a dog park. 91. Brandon told his dying father that he'd modernize the family hardware store by turning it into a vape shop. The father, who built the business from a single hammer, didn't appreciate the vision. He left the store to his longest-serving employee and left Brandon a single rusted screwdriver. The note said, "Since you want to change things, start by fixing your own life." 92. After her mother was hospitalized, Monica's first move was to change the locks on the family home to keep her siblings out. She even started labeling the good furniture with her name. The mother recovered just enough to see the labels and changed her will that afternoon. Monica's inheritance? The labels she printed and a bill for the locksmith she hired to lock her family out. 93. A nephew named Kyle refused to help his uncle clear out a messy attic, calling it a dump for a hoarder. He didn't know the dump contained a first edition comic book and a rare baseball card. The uncle gave the entire contents of the attic to the neighbor's kid who helped him for an hour. Kyle got a world's best nephew mug with a massive crack in it. 94. Tiffany told her grandmother that her old-fashioned values were blocking her manifestation of wealth. She even tried to charge her grandma consulting fees for life advice. Grandma manifested a new will, leaving Tiffany a manifestation journal with every page blank except the last one, which read, "Get a job." The grandmother's millions went to a local library. 95. When his father asked for a lift to his final checkup, Steven said he couldn't miss his influencer networking event. He told his dad to Uber it and keep the receipt. Dad did, and then he gave the receipt to his lawyer. He left Steven exactly the cost of that Uber ride, while the rest of the $3 million estate went to a scholarship for aspiring doctors. 96. Zara spent years critiquing her aunt's home decor, calling it cheap and tacky to anyone who would listen. The aunt, a secret millionaire, decided to give Zara exactly what she thought of the house. She left her the tacky plastic lawn flamingos and a note, "Since you hated my style, you don't have to worry about living in it." The penthouse went to a museum of modern art. 97. After his brother died, Paul tried to claim his brother's luxury watch by telling the widow it was a loan he had given him years ago. He even forged a fake receipt. The widow produced the actual receipt showing the brother bought it himself. Paul was sued for fraud and removed from the will entirely. His inheritance? A plastic learn-to-tell time clock for kids. 98. Beatrix told her father that his sentimental garden was a waste of water and she'd put a concrete parking lot over it for passive income. The father, a lifelong botanist, left the garden to the city as a public park named after the daughter who preferred concrete. Beatrix received a single bag of mulch and a lifetime ban from the property. 99. A grandson named Tyler told his grandpa that he was too old to understand crypto and should just give him the keys to the safe so he could invest it properly. Grandpa understood enough to move his entire Bitcoin wallet to a cold storage device and leave it to a cat shelter. Tyler's inheritance? The private key to a wallet that contained exactly $0.00. 100. Megan complained that her father's funeral didn't have a good enough catering menu and even asked for a refund on her travel costs. The executor informed her that her payoff was a single bottle of cheap wine and a bill for her portion of the funeral sandwiches. The rest of the money was donated to a local food bank. $1. Finally, there's Justin, who told his dying uncle he'd skip the funeral to avoid the bad energy and just wait for the wire transfer. The uncle decided to send some good energy instead. He left his entire estate to a local comedy club on the condition they tell a joke about Justin every night for a year. Justin's inheritance? A free admission ticket to the first show. Most of you watching this are probably already planning who to cut out of your own will. But let's flip the script. If your family saw your search history or your private texts right now, would they still leave you a cent? Or would you be the star of our next video? Be honest. What's the one secret you're taking to the grave just to keep your inheritance safe? Drop your confession below. Smash like if you think karma is the best lawyer and subscribe to join the circle.